Millionaire demands DNA test from cleaner. But what he discovers will shock you forever. In the grand estate of Weston Ridge, where gleaming marble met plush velvet, the air crackled with secrets and whispers. At the heart of it all, billionaire Nathaniel Reed sat at his hefty mahogany desk, worry etched across his sharp features. It wasn't just about money tonight, it was about something much deeper, something that shook him to his core. His hand trembled slightly as he picked up the phone, a simple call that would change everything. The cleaner, a quiet woman named Angela, had worked for him for years. She seemed ordinary, sweeping through his opulent halls without a sound. But last week, he stumbled upon a box of old letters buried in a dusty corner of the attic, letters hinting at a lineage tangled in shadows. A name in those letters sparked an unsettling recognition, a name that could challenge everything he believed about himself. As he stared into the flickering candle flames, his chest tightened, each breath drawing in fear and curiosity. Could it be true? Could he really be connected to someone so different, but that wasn't he all? Across town, whispers buzzed among the townsfolk, exchanging wild stories of Angela. Some claimed she had discovered hidden treasures while cleaning, others swore they saw her speaking to a group of hooded figures late at night. There was something magnetic about her aura, it pulled at Nathaniel from miles away. And now, he could feel it dating back to something deep and raw, a dangerous curiosity mixed with shimmering dread. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he contemplated the gravity of the DNA test he was about to demand, the house felt suddenly colder, shadows stretching out like fingers reaching for him. What if he was right? What if everything changed after tonight? This dizzying cocktail of possibility and dread danced around him, whispering, taunting. Nathaniel felt the sweat bead on his forehead. He was tempted to call it all off, to let sleeping secrets lie. But he couldn't. Something inside him yearned to unveil the truth. What if Angela held the key to a past that could unravel everything he knew? This was only the beginning. Would he be prepared for the truth that lay hidden beneath layers of dust and silence? As the clock ticked ominously in the background, one question loomed larger than the rest: what secret did Angela carry that had been hidden for so long? The phone rang, slicing through the thick silence like a knife. Each vibration echoed in Nathaniel's chest, making it harder to breathe. He cursed under his breath in an attempt to steady his racing heart, but the curiosity clawed at him. This call wasn't just business, it was a confrontation waiting to happen. Angela. He murmured, almost as if saying her name would summon her presence into his sterile office. When she answered, there was a soft hitch in her voice, an uncertainty that tugged at Nathaniel's gut. Mr. Reed? Is everything all right? His tongue felt thick, caught between two worlds. Technically, he was fine. Financially, he was thriving. Yet within the confines of this gilded cage, a storm brewed, fierce and unrelenting. Can you come to the estate tonight? The urgency in his tone surprised even him. I need to discuss something important. There was a pause, a soft whisper of rustling on the other end. Of course, I'll be there. He hung up, restless energy radiating from his core. What was he going to tell her? How could he drop the bomb of testing her DNA, digging into secrets he had only just uncovered? The weight of possibility felt like a lead ball in his stomach. Hours trickled by, and when Angela finally arrived, she looked more composed than he felt. Her unassuming uniform clung to her petite frame, yet there was an undeniable fire in her eyes. She looked like someone who had faced challenges and risen from the ashes. Mr. Reed, she smiled, but there was hesitation lurking in her expression. What's so urgent? His throat tightened, every word feeling like stepping onto broken glass. Sit down, please. As she took a seat, he felt the walls of his pristine office closing in on him. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, he saw not just a cleaner, but a potential link to a past that could dismantle his carefully constructed identity. "Angela," he began, swallowing hard as if the very act of speaking would release the truth he dared not voice. "I found some old letters in the attic, letters that mention your name and my lineage." Her brows knitted together in confusion. "What do you mean?" There it was. That flicker of intrigue, followed swiftly by shadows of anxiety. He could see it in the twitch of her lips, the way her fingers danced nervously on the table. But before he could continue, sirens wailed outside, cutting through their moment. Nathaniel's heart raced at the noise, but the urgency in his voice grew sharper. "I need you to take a DNA test." The room fell into thick silence, the weight of his words hanging like a pendulum above them. Angela's eyes widened, a cocktail of disbelief and fear swirling within them. "A DNA test? Why?" "It's complicated," he stammered, feeling desperation creeping into his tone. "I need to know if you might be linked to these letters, to my past." In that moment, the air chilled further, stretching the unease between them. She remained silent, contemplating the revelation that had shattered their ordinary relationship. "Please, Angela," he pressed, leaning forward. "What if you hold the key to something monumental?" A long breath escaped her lips, and she shook her head slightly, like a woman awakening from a dream. I need to think about this." As she stood up to leave, Nathaniel felt his heart pounding with dread. What if she said no? What if she was already harboring secrets of her own? Just as she reached the door, she turned back, her voice low and trembling. "If what you're saying is true, then we might just be stepping into danger together," and with that, she slipped into the night, leaving Nathaniel alone with the growing shadows and the terrifying knowledge that the game had just begun. Would he have the courage to follow her into the unknown, or was he inviting chaos into his life? As the clock ticked again, he realized he might already be too late. What other secrets lay hidden in the dark? Nathaniel sat in the suffocating silence of his office, the shadows creeping up the walls like whispers of a past he dared not confront. Hours ticked by, each second charged with uncertainty. Angela's departure lingered like a ghost, her last words echoing in his mind. Danger? He had reckoned with risk his entire life, but this was different. This threat had roots buried deep in his family's history. The letters had come to him through dusty boxes filled with memories he preferred to forget. Old words scrawled in his father's hand seemed to vibrate with a dark urgency. Names he didn't recognize. Connections he couldn't fathom. And now, Angela, standing at the precipice of revelations that could shatter everything he thought he knew. He glanced at the clock. It was nearing midnight. With a shuddering breath, he decided that waiting was not an option. He grabbed his keys and with his heart thrumming in his chest, he urgently made his way out of the estate. The night air slapped him awake as he drove through the deserted streets, the loneliness of the city streetlights flickering like his rapidly spiraling thoughts. His mind raced with possibilities. What if she agreed? What if she didn't? Each scenario spun into a vortex of dread and anticipation. He had to know. The weight of the secret drew him closer to the edge of reason. He needed to confront the truth, whatever it might be, before it consumed him whole. Finally arriving at Angela's modest apartment complex, he paused, heart pounding against his ribcage. Did she even want to see him again? He knocked, each rap echoing louder than the last, a drumbeat of anxiety pulsing through him. Coming. Her voice was muffled, but he could hear the hesitation. The door creaked open, and Angela stood there, her expression a mixture of bewilderment and resolve. Nathaniel. She breathed, as if his sudden appearance was another surprise in a night already filled with uncertainty. Angela, I. He stumbled over his words, wrestling his thoughts into coherence. I had to see you. It's important. She stepped back, allowing him entry. The small space was dimly lit, packed with vibrant plants that seemed to breathe life into the shadows, a striking contrast to the cold truth looming between them. I've been thinking, she murmured, arms crossed defensively. About the test and what that means. Do we really know what we're getting into? He felt the air thicken around them. No, we don't. But I can't ignore this whatever connection it is. His breath caught in his throat. I don't think we can pretend it doesn't matter. Angela's eyes darkened, mirroring the uncertainty swirling in his gut. What else did the letters say? Nathaniel hesitated, the truth was a fragile butterfly in his hands. There's mention of family secrets, not just mine, yours, too. The tension crackled, a palpable charge that seemed to hum between them. He could see the light of understanding dawning in her eyes, the flickers of fear twisting with curiosity. What do you mean? She urged, her voice low, almost a whisper. Your name was linked to mine, but not just that. It speaks of legacies, of ties that run deeper than we imagined, and the consequences. He hesitated, faltering over the weight of the words, that can be deadly. As he spoke, a sudden jarring crash echoed from the street below, making them both jump. Nathaniel rushed to the window, heart clenching. Outside, a group of figures moved with purpose, their silhouettes casting a foreboding omen against the pale moonlight. Who are they? Angela trembled slightly. I don't know, he whispered, a chill running down his spine. But something tells me they're connected to these secrets to us. Both stood frozen, the very air between them now electric with a new sense of urgency. Whatever they were about to uncover, it was already hunting them down. Anchored in that moment of heavy silence, a chilling realization washed over him. They were far from alone, and the danger was no longer just a concept. It was here, lurking just beyond the door, what was waiting for them on the other side. Nathaniel's pulse quickened, matching the frantic energy buzzing in the room. The figures outside moved closer, shadows blending into the darkness. A scrape against the pavement sent an icy jolt down his spine. He turned back to Angela, her eyes wide, reflecting both terror and determination. Should we call the police? She whispered, clutching her phone like a lifeline. No time, he replied, his voice steadying despite the chaos outside. We need to find out who they are, and why they're here. They tiptoed to the door, Nathaniel's hand hovering over the knob. Each breath felt like it invaded the fragile silence, amplifying their fear. He leaned closer, eyeing the window for any sign of intent. What if the letters were only the beginning? What if Angela was right? This could all lead to something far deeper, something they weren't prepared to face. As he peered through the gap in the curtains, his stomach twisted. The figures weren't just random strangers, they were dressed in dark clothing, their faces hidden beneath hoods. He could see the flash of something metallic in one man's hand, maybe a weapon. The worst-case scenarios spiraled through his head. They had been warned about the danger, but this was worse than he could have imagined. We can't just stand here, he said, adrenaline surging through him. We have to go out back. There's an alley that runs behind the building. If we move quietly, we can slip away before they notice. Angela nodded, fear etched across her features, but courage glimmering in her gaze. They skirted the furniture, the shadows swallowing them as they crept toward the back door. Nathaniel's mind raced with the options. Escape might be their best bet, but did they really want to run from the truth? Just as he unlatched the door, another crash echoed from the street below. This one was louder, thrumming against the air that felt charged with anticipation. Did you hear that? Angela's voice was barely above a whisper. Yeah, I did. This is escalating fast. We need to. Suddenly, the door rattled violently, an urgent knock followed by a deep voice. Angela. Open up. We know you're in there. Nathaniel felt his heart plummet. The authority in that voice sent a shiver through him. Who is it? He hardly waved a breath through his clenched teeth. Just a friend, Angela replied, the tremor deep in her voice betraying her. Friend? Nathaniel muttered. We need to move, now. He shoved the door open, ushering Angela into the shadowy alley just as the door rattled again. The figures outside began to disperse, forming a line, and he felt the air crackle with impending confrontation. The alley was narrow and dim, the stench of garbage mixing with the fresh chill of the night. "Where do we go?" Angela looked up at him, her eyes wide with desperation. "Follow me." He led the way, pushing through the back of the alley, the risk hanging over them like a storm cloud. They rounded a corner and spotted a figure standing in the moonlight. It was a woman. She was familiar, the features striking a distant chord in Nathaniel's mind. As they drew closer, recognition rooted itself in the pit of his stomach. "Wait, I know you." He halted, both intrigued and alarmed. Before he could process the implications, the ground seemed to shift beneath him. An unmistakable tension swelled as the woman spoke. "We need to talk about your family. And Angela, you're part of this too." "Part of what?" Angela demanded, taking a brave step forward. The woman's eyes narrowed, shadow and light dancing across her features. "There are truths buried that we must uncover before it's too late." Nathaniel's mind raced. Truths? Secrets? Allies or enemies? And just as he thought things couldn't get worse, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed ominously behind them. Were they coming to help, or to finish what had been started long ago? Nathaniel's heart thudded in his chest as those footsteps grew louder, reverberating off the alley walls. He turned, eyes darting to where the shadows were thickest, their edges curling around the looming threat. Whatever it was, that dark presence behind them, it brought danger. Fear slithered through him, creeping into the corners of his mind. "Stay close," he breathed to Angela, who was glancing nervously at the woman standing before them. The stranger held a gaze that bore into them both. There was urgency in her expression, an almost desperate flicker of hope. "I'm not your enemy," she insisted, her voice strong despite the chill permeating the air. "But you need to understand." "Understand what?" Nathaniel interrupted, torn between the dread of the approaching figures and the promise of answers. "We don't even know who you are." Just then, the alley lit up with something bright, and Nathaniel squinted against the glare. A flashlight was sweeping the space, illuminating the bricks and revealing the figures stepping out of the shadows. Each one was dressed the same, dark clothes, faces obscured by hoods. The woman flinched, the light catching her eye, and Nathaniel saw a flicker of fear wash over her. "Run!" she shouted, her calm facade cracking. She took a step back, gesturing toward an opening further down the alley, and Nathaniel didn't hesitate. He grabbed Angela's hand and pulled her with him, adrenaline propelling them forward. They dove into the nearby shadows, ducking behind a dumpster, the overwhelming stench of refuse filling their noses. The footsteps grew closer, and Nathaniel pressed himself against the cold metal, keeping as still as he could. He could hear voices now, low and urgent. "Where did they go?" A man growled, his tone laced with frustration. "They can't have vanished into thin air." "Split up," another voice responded. "Check every corner. We need them found." Nathaniel's breath quickened at the thought of being caught. "What do we do now?" he whispered to Angela, panic seeping into his voice. Angela's eyes flicked to the darkened street beyond. "What about her?" She tried to gesture toward the woman, who hadn't followed them. "Forget her. We can't risk it." Nathaniel snapped, but immediately felt a tug of guilt. He recognized the desperation in her eyes, the shared urge to survive. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the alley. A cart had toppled over, and one of the cloaked figures swore sharply. The clattering sound amplified their vulnerability, making Nathaniel wish the ground would swallow him whole. "Come on!" he hissed, pulling Angela further into the shadows where the moon hardly touched. As they tiptoed away, thoughts spiraled through his head. What had the woman meant? What family secrets were buried? Would uncovering the truth protect them, or would it lead to their doom? They burst through another narrow path, emerging onto a dismal side street lined with boarded-up shops. A sense of momentary safety washed over them, but above it lingered an undeniable weight. A sense of dread pressed against their skin like a heavy fog. Do you think they saw us? Angela trembled, her grip tightening around Nathaniel's hand. God, I hope not. His mind reeled. They needed a plan, an escape, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning and that the shadows were still watching. How deep did this web stretch? As he turned to look back down the alley, he caught a glimpse of the woman, a flash of desperation in her eyes before she disappeared into the gloom. Who was she? Angela whispered, her own confusion mirroring his. I don't know. But I think we'll find out. It seems like she's just the tip of the iceberg. The air shifted, heavy with the threat of what was lurking just out of sight. With growing urgency, Nathaniel steered Angela toward the far end of the street, the heavy sound of footsteps still echoing in his mind. What other secrets awaited them in this night thick with uncertainty? Would they ever be free from the looming shadows behind them? Nathaniel's heart raced as he pulled Angela into an alleyway that twisted through the darkened streets like a serpent. They stumbled over uneven bricks, their breaths loud in the silence, broken only by the faint sound of shuffling feet behind them. A rush of adrenaline flooded his system, but so did an overwhelming sense of dread. The night felt too heavy, clinging to him like a wet blanket. Where do we go now? Angela asked, her voice a trembling whisper. Nathaniel could barely meet her eyes, guilt clawing at him. His decision to leave the woman behind felt monstrous, but survival kicked in. Just keep moving, he urged, trying to mask the panic in his own voice. The dim light from a flickering street lamp barely illuminated the grime on the pavement, creating an environment ripe for what loomed beyond their sight. Without warning, they heard a shout, sharp and penetrating. They went this way. It pierced through the chill of the night, a beacon of their imminent danger. Nathaniel's gut clenched. There was a weight to that voice that felt familiar, as if it belonged to someone who knew them, or worse, someone who intended them harm. Over there. Angela pointed to a doorway partially hidden by tendrils of ivy. They darted across the street, hearts pounding, praying to go unnoticed. It felt like a nightmare. Each movement was laced with terror. Nathaniel flung the door open, the hinges creaking like a warning, and pushed Angela inside, stumbling after her. The room was dark and smelled of stale air, a forgotten world locked away. The door shut behind them with a finality that made Nathaniel's heart quaver. They pressed themselves against the wall, silent as shadows, listening. Footsteps echoed outside, growing fainter but still dangerously close. They must be in here. Check every place they could hide. The voices of their pursuers were harsh and demanding, a sickening soundtrack to their plight. What do we do? Angela's voice shook, and Nathaniel could feel her fear pulse in the air around them, contagious and laced with panic. Wait, he breathed, feeling the cold metal of a doorknob in his hand. If they could just get a lock on their door. He pushed himself to step quietly through the dust and debris, careful not to make a sound. Are you sure it's safe? Angela protested softly. Just trust me, he said. It was all he had left, the faint hope that they found solace behind these old, crumbling walls. Just as he reached the door to secure it, something caught his eye, a glimmer beneath an old table. It was a flash drive. Nathaniel picked it up, wondering about the story behind it. His mind whirled with possibilities. What secrets might it hold? But the sound of footsteps brought him back to reality. Keep it. We'll examine it later, he whispered, slipping it into his pocket as he returned to Angela's side. They breathed in unison, instinctually leaning against one another, sharing a fleeting moment of comfort amidst their chaos. The footsteps grew louder again, voices looming larger, spurred by a desperation that moved through the air like a storm. Nathaniel cursed under his breath. Time was running short. When they come in, we'll use that as a distraction. I can throw something in. Do you hear that? Angela's wide eyes were focused on the ceiling. Nathaniel listened closely. A low, resonant thumping emerged, growing nearer, drowning the sudden rush of blood in his ears. He peered up, searching for the source of the sound. Was it just his imagination, or did it come from behind the walls that surrounded them? Before he could reply, a loud crash rattled the door, sending tremors through the frame. They're coming. Panic flooded Nathaniel's senses as they turned to the window, their only path to escape. The proximity of danger pulled them tighter together. He opened the window, reaching out into the darkness. There was no choice. Jumping seemed like the only option, but was it a chance or a reckless leap into the unknown? "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, a tremor echoing the uncertainty in his heart. Angela nodded, holding on to him like he was a lifeline. Beneath them, gravel awaited, jagged and unforgiving. With one last look back, he braced himself as footsteps crashed onto the door. "Let us go." Just as they prepared to leap, Nathaniel felt the ground shift beneath him, a tremor that could either lead to their salvation or ruin. What awaited them outside? Was the danger worse than the fall? The answers slipped further out of reach as shadows loomed, ready to engulf them whole. The world outside felt wild and untamed. Nathaniel felt Angela clutch his arm tighter as they hovered on the brink of their leap, both aware that the moment they jumped, they would surrender the small comfort of the crumbling room behind them. The door shuddered under another blow, and their hearts thumped as if they were racing against the clock of their own survival. "Now or never!" Nathaniel shouted, taking charge. He leaped first, arms outstretched, pulling Angela with him into the void. The ground rushed up to greet them. Pain shot through Nathaniel's ankles as they landed, but adrenaline masked the sting just enough for him to scramble to his feet. Angela followed closely behind, her breath catching as she surveyed their surroundings. They were in a narrow alley bathed in moonlight, flanked by rusting dumpsters and the stench of refuse, half hidden under tendrils of darkness. "Where now?" Angela gasped, her voice strained. "Go left," Nathaniel urged, scanning the area. He could feel eyes on him, a heavy pressure clawing at his instincts. They darted down the alley, pushed forward by fear, breath clouding invisible puffs like smoke from a fire threatening to blaze. Suddenly, the sound of their pursuers echoed once more, sharp and close, their frantic shouts ripping through the night. "We'll find you, don't you worry." Nathaniel felt icy tendrils of dread wrap around his spine. "We need to find somewhere to hide," he muttered urgently, scanning the buildings around him. His eyes landed on an industrial-looking door, barely visible through the shadows. "Quick!" He yanked it open, the rusty hinges protesting with a screech. They slipped inside, barely breathing as he shut the door behind them. Inside was an old storage room, cramped and filled with dusty boxes. The scent of damp wood hung in the air. "Do you think they saw us?" Angela whispered, her eyes darting toward the door, wild with fear. "I don't know, but they're coming." Nathaniel looked around, searching for an escape route as the shouts from outside grew louder, more frantic. "We have to stay quiet." The seconds ticked by, heavy and suffocating. Each creak of the floor felt like thunder in the silence. Just as Nathaniel began to feel the weight of hopelessness clutching at his chest, the booming voice of a man echoed through the halls outside. "They can't hide forever. Check all the storage rooms in this damn building." Nathaniel's breath quickened. "We can't stay here," he said, urgency rising in his throat. "We need to find another way out." They moved to the back of the storage room, where a dim light filtered in through a small, grimy window. Nathaniel climbed onto a stack of crates, peering out. A gravel path snaked behind the building, leading toward a more open area. "There." He pointed. "That way." "Right," Angela nodded, her determination igniting through the fear. He helped her climb up to the window first, heart racing as he lifted her through. Once she was out, he clambered up and squeezed through, scraping his arm on the rough edges of the frame. They landed silently on the gravel below, tucking themselves low against the building. The night was eerily still, but they dared not breathe easy yet. Just as Nathaniel turned to Angela, a scuffle erupted behind them. "They went that way." A voice screamed, male and aggressive. Fear prickled through Nathaniel's mind. They had to move fast. "This way. Run." He took Angela's hand, pulling her with him as they sprinted across the gravel, heartbeats pounding in harmony, the sounds of their tormentors growing nearer. they raced toward a chain-link fence that loomed like a daunting wall. "Can you climb?" Nathaniel asked, urgency flooding his voice. "I'll try." Angela huffed, glancing back. They heard the pounding of footsteps grow closer, the men relentless and fueled by anger. Without waiting, Nathaniel began to climb, fingers gripping the coarse metal, as fear gripped his heart. He could hear Angela's desperate breaths behind him. The way they mingled with the sound of their pursuers sent a jolt of resolve through him. As they reached the top, he glanced back one last time. The figures were almost upon them, faces distorted with rage and intent. "Up!" he urged, helping Angela reach the top. Just as they prepared to jump down on the other side, Nathaniel caught sight of something glinting in the moonlight, a piece of metal, large and sharp, wedged into the ground. His breath hitched. Was it a weapon? A tool to their escape? With a jolt of impulse, he reached for it, but the moment stretched, urgency pulsing through his veins. Would the blade grant them a chance to fight back? Or was it just another distraction in this nightmare? He couldn't decide. The escape demanded his full attention. They had to jump now or risk everything to the malevolent figures gaining ground behind them. A decision needed to be made, one that would change everything. Angela's eyes widened as Nathaniel hesitated, torn between the looming threat and the potential for salvation. Their pursuers were mere seconds away, voices echoing in the empty night, filled with fury and determination. "Nathaniel! We need to go," Angela urged, leaning closer to him, the fear in her voice almost palpable. He felt himself teetering on the edge, adrenaline coursing through his veins like electricity. He glanced back toward the space where the figures would soon emerge, their intentions clear. They wanted them. Swiftly, he shoved the glimmering metal into his pocket, deciding it could wait. Survival reigned paramount. "Down!" he commanded, vaulting from the fence, Angela following right behind him. They hit the ground with quiet thuds, rolling into the shadows. Their hearts hammered in unison, and silence enveloped them as they crouched low, listening intently. "Damn! Where are they?" one of the voices barked from across the gravel path. Nathaniel could visualize the frustration etching lines into the man's face. "Split up. Check the perimeter." Another shouted, dispersing their pursuers. The tension in Nathaniel's chest clenched tighter. They were scattering, and every footfall beneath the open sky felt like a countdown clock ticking down to zero. "Come on," Nathaniel pulled Angela's hand, leading her toward an overgrown patch nearby, shrouded in darkness. "This way." They dashed toward a wall of thick bushes, where moonlight barely penetrated the leafy canopy. Pressing against the rough bark of a tree, Nathaniel tried to catch his breath but found it difficult. Goosebumps broke out on his arms, the anticipation hung thick in the air. "Do you think they'll find us here?" Angela whispered, her voice trembling like the leaves overhead. She searched his face, seeking reassurance in the dim light. "I hope not," he replied, pushing his fear down deep inside. "We just need to wait it out. They can't cover all this ground." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. Nathaniel felt the need to move, to keep running. Just then, a low rumble echoed from somewhere beyond the bushes, an engine revving, tires crunching against gravel. Panic jolted through him. "They're coming!" he hissed, yanking Angela deeper into the abyss of foliage. They crouched there, the vibrant rustle of nocturnal movements merely amplifying their racing hearts. He peered through the leaves, heart pounding against his ribs. In the distance, headlights pierced the darkness, illuminating the alleyway beyond. Nathaniel swore he recognized the car. It was sleek, dark, a predator lying in wait. "This isn't good," he muttered, noticing the grim determination on Angela's face mirrored his own. "They've brought a car?" she asked, dread swirling in the air between them. "They must be serious this time." He felt anger rise. Who were these men? Why were they chasing them down like animals? It didn't take long for the world to turn sides, and Nathaniel suddenly wished he knew more. Had he crossed a line without knowing? "Let us go back," he said in a fit of desperation. Find another way, but just as he turned, the bushes snapped behind them. A voice not from the direction of the car muffled through the trees, deep, gravelly, and far too close. I know you're there. Don't make this harder. Angela froze. He could see her breath stick in her throat as she stifled an instinctive gasp. The men were closing in, their hunt starting again. Not good, Nathaniel muttered, feeling the impulse to bolt. But another rustle, a softer sound this time from behind, shot fear straight through him. Wait. What? Angela's whisper turned sharp like daggers, eyes darting between the unknown threats. The tension vibrated, heavy and electric, as two shadows emerged silently from the other side of the thicket, figures cloaked in darkness, their intentions unreadable. Nathaniel's instincts screamed to move, to escape back into the night, but what if these newcomers were the key to their survival? Who are you? He called out, voice steady but heart racing, that he needed an ally more than ever, but the answer could either save him or seal their doom. The figures stepped closer, eyes glinting in the moonlight. Words hung in the air like heavy clouds before a storm. Are you Nathaniel? One of them asked, a tone that sent chills down his spine. His heart thudded, and with it came a question he never dared to ask. What did they know? What would they reveal if he let them speak? In that moment, as darkness loomed, he understood they weren't just facing men in pursuit, they were on the brink of unraveling a truth that could change everything. Nathaniel felt the chill of that question settle in the air. The man's voice, calm yet assertive, echoed in his mind as he grappled with the implications of the inquiry. Who wants to know? He shot back, attempting to mask his fear with defiance. The shadows merely chuckled softly, a sound that sent a ripple of unease through him. We're not your enemies, the stranger insisted, stepping into view. A tall figure, face partially obscured by a hood. But your situation just became more complicated. Behind him, the second figure, smaller but equally imposing, shifted slightly, revealing a dark jacket with a patch sewn on the sleeve that Nathaniel couldn't quite make out in the dim light. Why don't you tell us what you know? Angela's voice broke through Nathaniel's rising anxiety, steady and firm, fighting against the panic bubbling just beneath the surface. He glanced at her, a mixture of admiration and dread flooding through him. She was scared, they both were. But she was also brave, and he drew strength from her quiet resolve. The first man inclined his head slightly, eyes narrowing as he studied them. Let us say we're here to help. But first, you'll need to trust us. The people chasing you, they're not just thugs. They want something, and they'll stop at nothing to get it. Nathaniel exchanged glances with Angela. Trust? In this moment? But before he could respond, a pair of headlights swung into view, bright and jagged against the darkness like daggers. The menacing vehicle was drawing closer, the engine growling as it powered through the gravel. Damn, we have to move. Nathaniel urged, feeling the urgency of the moment claw at him. Now. Not yet, the cloaked stranger replied, standing firm. We need you to listen. They can't find you, not yet. There's more at stake here than you understand. Angela's hand tightened around Nathaniel's. What do you mean? What's at stake? The hooded man looked over his shoulder, calculating the distance to the approaching vehicle. If they catch you, they'll find what they're looking for and you'll never see dawn. You need to know that. A chill ripped down Nathaniel's spine. What were they talking about? What was out there that could potentially change everything? I can get you out of here. But we need to move, the stranger continued. Just then, the headlights split the night sky like a looming storm, illuminating the edges of the clearing they were locked in. Nathaniel could see the silhouette of his pursuer through the darkness, still searching, still hungry for a confrontation. His gut twisted. Follow me. The smaller figure darted into the cover of the thick branches, motioning urgently for Nathaniel and Angela to follow. Without thinking, they plunged into the thicket, limbs brushing against eternal night, branches clawed at their clothes, heartbeats raced like the engine of an idling car. As they slipped deeper into the underbrush, the sounds of the car grew muffled, but uncertainty hung thick in the air. "Who do you work for?" Nathaniel asked, breaths coming in quick succession. The dark-suited figure glanced back over his shoulder, eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and ghostly knowledge. "Let's just say I know more about you than you think, Nathaniel. More than what the men chasing you would ever like you to know." Panic flared again. Nathaniel felt confused, disoriented by the layers unfolding around him. "What do you mean?" But before he could get an answer, a loud crack echoed through the trees, followed by a shout, a voice he recognized. "There they are!" Nathaniel's heart dropped. The hunters had the scent, they were close. He felt Angela's hand slip from his grasp as she stumbled, her foot caught in a nest of roots. "Angela!" he shouted, his voice tearing through the panic. "Go!" she cried back, but it was too late. The shadows were upon them. Now, Nathaniel stood at a precipice, faced with choices that could either seal their fate or lead them to salvation. Would he abandon everything he believed to secure his own safety? Would he confront the dark truth lurking just beyond their reach? The air thickened with uncertainty, and time felt like a trickster savoring every second. As Nathaniel turned and saw those cold eyes creeping up to them, a question bubbled to the surface that chilled him even deeper. What terrible revelations awaited if they didn't escape? The roar of engines and the urgency of footfalls surged like a tidal wave around Nathaniel and Angela. The cloaked figures led them through the tangled woods, hearts hammering against their ribcages as desperation clawed at their resolve. Nathaniel's mind was a storm, thoughts swirling. Who were they? What did they know? And most pressing of all, could he truly trust them? "Keep your heads down," the taller stranger murmured, urgency lacing his voice. Nathaniel caught a fleeting glimpse of the man's eyes, a window of steely determination sparking hope in the chaos. The smaller figure pushed ahead, whispering directions, and Nathaniel felt the palpable weight of time slipping as sirens echoed and the tension mounted. Every rustling leaf amplified Nathaniel's heartbeat, every cracked twig underfoot felt like screaming. He risked a glance back, seeing the headlights slice through the trees, a menacing predator hunting them down. Angela's hand tightened in his, her breath a silent call for courage. "We can't let them find us," she whispered, words trembling in the cool night air. They ducked into a narrow opening, a makeshift path weaving deeper into the woods. The shadows loomed thick around them, a darkness wrapping around them like a shroud. "The cabin isn't far," the smaller figure panted, urgency intonated in his voice, "but we have to hurry." Nathaniel felt the momentum. This might just lead them away from danger, but at what cost? Their path opened into a small clearing, faint moonlight filtering through leaves overhead. Ahead, a rustic cabin emerged, aged wood exhaling memories that clung like whispers of secrets. "In there," the tall figure urged, sprinting towards the door. Nathaniel held Angela tightly, their gazes interlocking with a fierce determination. Whatever awaited them inside needed to be faced together. Inside the cabin was unsettlingly quiet, an old fireplace resting cold against the back wall, shadows licking at the corners. The stranger flicked on a small lantern, illuminating the walls covered with faded photographs, the faces there hauntingly familiar and yet shrouded in time. "You both need to understand," he began, his voice deep and gravelly. "What they want, it's not just about you. It's about legacy." Nathaniel's heart raced at the implications. "Legacy?" he echoed, confusion thickening the air around them. The tall man nodded gravely. "There are secrets buried under generations, truths that go back before your family even built that estate. The letters you found." He paused, lowering his voice as if the walls themselves could hear, "they're only the beginning." Angela's brows knitted together, and Nathaniel felt her grip tighten. "What do you mean? Who are you?" she demanded, her courage shining through the veil of fear. "I'm here to protect you," the taller figure replied, "but I need your trust. We can't let the others find you first." "Others?" Nathaniel interjected, a tremor of dread weaving through him. "What is going on?" "Powerful forces want to erase your existence. They desire what lies in your blood," Nathaniel, your legacy and lineage can shift the balance in a game far beyond your understanding, the man explained, urgency urging him to quicken his pace. But if they find you, it will end not just for you, but for everyone connected to this fabric. As those words sank in, Nathaniel's vision blurred with frustration and fear. Were they running from a mere rumor? Or was there a dark truth that threatened to consume them at the hands of ruthless pursuers? He turned back to Angela, desperate to gauge her thoughts. "We can't stop now," she said, her voice steady but tinged with anxiety. And in that moment, amidst the secrets and shadows swirling all around them, Nathaniel realized they were allies against a mystery that curled around them like smoke. "Then let us find out what we need to do," he said, resolve firming in his chest. The cabin creaked, and just as they began mentally preparing for the revelations to come, a loud bang echoed from outside, something heavy crashing against the door. The men were here. "Quick!" the smaller ally urged. "We have a hideout in the back." "This way." Nathaniel felt adrenaline spike as they shuffled towards the rear of the cabin. The attackers were not wasting time. He pushed open a hidden door behind a dusty wardrobe, revealing a narrow stairwell descending into an even darker abyss. "In!" The urgency snapped Nathaniel into motion, helping Angela enter first before sliding in himself. The air grew damp, pressing against them like a shroud. Once inside, the ally whispered, "Stay quiet. We need to listen." He pressed his ear against the grimy wall, straining to hear footsteps above. Anger and fear mixed within him, a cocktail that brewed up caution. He could feel Angela trembling slightly beside him, so he took her hand and squeezed a silent promise she wouldn't face this alone. The pounding grew louder, escalating into chaos as the door burst open, shattering the fragile silence. "Find them!" a voice roared, sending Nathaniel's heart plunging. But in that moment, clarity washed over him. "Angela," he whispered, urgency firing in his veins. "There might be a way out through here." They glanced at each other, determination flickering in their gazes like fire. It was about survival, yes, but it was also about facing whatever these shadows hid with fierce courage. They were on the brink of uncovering the truth, but would they be strong enough to confront it together? And as they prepared to push forward through the darkened corridors that twisted downward, Nathaniel knew one thing: this journey was more than just a fight for their lives. It was a fight for their identities, their truths, and the legacies that would not allow them to be erased from existence. They took a deep breath and moved, ready to challenge whatever evils loomed above. A reckoning was at hand, and it would change everything. Now was the moment they'd been waiting for, to face the shadows head-on. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe now to catch all the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support the channel. We want to hear your reactions and theories about this ending, so flood the comments section below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see what happened. This is the moment to show your support.